It
behind
should
the scenes
be.
insight.
It should be starting here any moment.
Oh, Pantera's hit me with the not like this emote. That's
Yeah.
it.
All right. It should be working now. What's going on here?
All right, welcome to the chat room.
Are we live?
How the hell do they do it on like the NFL broadcast and shit? Like they fuck it up, but not that often, like they're using the same internet as everyone else. Like, but just uh,
I'm actually kind of confused right now. Twitch says the broadcast you're watching has ended, but OBS is showing that I'm up. No drop frames. Nothing. Is it
what wouldn't it
working
come up as a
yet?
new broadcast if you just started it up again?
Yeah,
Here we
okay.
go.
We're live on Twitter.
We're live on a second one. Yeah, on Twitter. Yeah, yeah.
So what's going on with Twitch?
Let's see. Well, we might just have to roll on Twitter. No, we're live. I can see us right now.
Oh, here we go.
All right.
Okay. What a pain.
All right, we're gonna roll from the start then.
Yep.
Okay, we'll edit that out. Okay. All right. Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast. Following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency, this is episode number 101, ThorChain and BCH featuring familiarcow. Today is Wednesday, the 13th of December, 2023. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing, same as always. And we have a quick note to begin, which is for people who are listening to the previous episode with Roger. He said live on air that he was going to try and get some details about the cash tokens and Bitcoin.com wallet integration, if that was underway or whatnot. And he messaged me after the show and said, with some details from Corbin, who said that basically they're keeping an eye on it, but they're not going to be diving in deep into that straight away. And the reason is because you have the SLP and SBCH failures, which obviously aren't inspiring a lot of confidence in the team. The dev tooling for cash tokens is still really young. There's not a lot of price feeds for assets. It's not a lot of icons. The documentation needs work. They need to go out to millions of users immediately, and they're supporting 5 or 6 chains. So BCH specific features really have to be justifying any dev time that they spend on it. So they'll keep an eye on it. Maybe over the next 6 to 12 months, they'll get back into it, or they won't. Who knows? But the ecosystem can, I guess, plow on without them anyway. So I'm not too worried about it. Okay, our guest today is familiarcow, who is a ThorChad, a ThorChain builder and communications director at Nine Realms. Welcome to the show. How do you get into Bitcoin?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've been into Bitcoin for a couple of years, probably since like 2015, on and off, been like in and out. I think a lot of people get in for like number goes up, which is like obviously pretty cool. And the was into that for a bit, and then interest kind of wanes and waxes. I saw some new cool tech like smart contracts come into play, and I thought that was pretty cool. But Bitcoin's always kind of had my imagination a little bit, like I think like a lot of us. So what's really kept me around and made me stick around is just being able to trade Bitcoin without a centralized exchange, without without that counterparty, and having some kind of trusted relationship between you and whoever you're selling your Bitcoin to. So obviously that being ThorChain. So that's kind of what's brought me around, and now completely transitioned my life to focusing on this and being able to trade Bitcoin in the most trust minimized manner as you possibly can, and then building other cool stuff on top of Bitcoin to just eliminate trusted third parties, which I think is kind of all a vision that we're all pretty aligned with. So that's pretty much what I'm here for, just to make Bitcoin more do more things than just be kind of a pet rock, so to speak.
The digital pet rock. Yeah, that's a frequent
Yep.
pejorative that people do leverage against, BTC specifically. And it's funny because it's like there's two groups of people trying to add more functionality to BTC. And one of them is the people inside the BTC community, and the other is the people outside the BTC community. And the ones who are outside are actually doing the better job. The ones who are on the inside, they get into infighting, they get stalled, they have all these different problems. But things like ThorChain can just crack on and add it into the rest of crypto, and it just goes so much smoother, right? Because there's not those internal politics, and it's just permissionless, and you just build whatever you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. We don't need permission to build on top of Bitcoin. Like we create like the whole architecture of ThorChain is to solve the problem of how do you have a Bitcoin custodian, right? How do you custody Bitcoin on its native chain through non-authoritarian, so a permissionless validator set that's rotating constantly, so it's capture resistant. How do you custody that Bitcoin through that anonymous validator set and enable things like swaps and everything that ThorChain does? That's pretty much the entire purpose around it. And yeah, I mean, currently it's the only way to do something like this, because you can't build it directly on the Bitcoin network. You need to kind of use the Bitcoin network as a primitive and build architecture around it in order to secure those assets and kind of solve that problem of how do you trade without that trusted third party, which is kind of all what it comes back to, because that's pretty much how everyone does it nowadays.
Yeah, and it's a pretty essential part of the crypto infrastructure when you think about it, because even though ThorChain is still sort of relatively recent-ish, as far as I'm aware, it was like started 2018, maybe the idea came up, and then 2019 was when it kind of launched. So I guess now we're getting to the end of 2023. So that's a full 4 years of building. But at the same time, such a huge project, it takes a while to get going, it takes a while to build up liquidity and so forth. And there's not all that many other alternatives necessarily. Like a lot of the people always going on about DEXs and so forth. And most of that tends to just be within one chain, right? Or
yeah,
so
I mean,
then,
going into the history a little bit, like there's some pretty interesting developments. Like I think ThorChain originally started. So I've been around for less than the history of ThorChain. So this is kind of going off of what other people have told me about the history of ThorChain. So it's kind of started off as a kind of a failed idea because the technology just wasn't there back in early 2018, I believe. And then something came along called threshold signatures, which is basically like a fancier multi-sig, and being able to aggregate signatures from multiple different parties. So in order to form one signature to then send out Bitcoin to from basically a set of one parties that doesn't need to be the same set all the time. And you can do it once you reach a certain threshold of consensus. So it basically makes an easier way to have a multi-sig for this type of use case. And that was one of the first major innovations that kind of allowed ThorChain to exist, was the advent of threshold signatures. So we call it's called TSS. So if I say like TSS later, then that's what it's referring to. And yeah, we use this GG20 TSS algorithm essentially, which makes it so you can have 20 signers for one Bitcoin transaction. As soon as 16 of them agree, then it basically is able to send out Bitcoin from a shared vault. So that's one of like the core innovations that wasn't really possible, back in the day, but now with a lot of advances in cryptography, that's a more recent thing, and a lot of other people are leveraging that tech too. It's pretty common in the space now, from what I've seen.
yeah, well, that's one of the amazing things about crypto, right? It's because it obviously has that economic element. It has spurred so much research and development into cryptography. So the crypto community, if they don't have the tools they need for the job, well, they'll get on and they'll invent them, or discover them, I guess. However, they'll come up with any new shit that we need, like sort of faster than we can be kind of regulated or slowed down or whatever. Like the crypto community is incredibly entrepreneurial, obviously in many cases in a rather scammy way, which is a bit unfortunate, but you cannot deny that it's at least creative and profit minded. So I love when this kind of stuff comes out that is actually useful, that of all the things that are going on, a couple of good things take root that otherwise maybe there would have never been a need for humanity to discover or investigate or look into. It's just really incredible how the sort of singular primitive of the Bitcoin white paper and then has just led to this huge explosion of stuff that we have now, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of this came out of university research, I believe. And it's a very complicated topic. Like there's very few people in the world who actually understand TSS. I'm certainly not one of them. I'm not, a mathematical or cryptographical like genius like these guys. I would say there's, only handfuls of people that, really truly understand threshold signatures. So it's very much on the cutting edge. And when ThorChain put this into production, we're one of the first networks to really actually start leveraging TSS like in a production environment and actually start securing like, real funds using TSS. Now it's definitely becoming a lot more common. You see it with wallets nowadays using TSS. So like I've seen plenty of wallets that they'll shard your private key into 3 different keys. They'll hold one of them and then you custody 2 of them. So that way, basically as like a backup solution where they can have a partial part of your key, but they can't just sign out funds from your wallet. But it's basically some kind of backup solution where if you lose one of those keys, they still have the second one as a backup. So it's useful for a ton of different things. This is just the solution that we're using in order to you have like a shared custody solution for the Bitcoin that the network custodies. Because obviously, like we all know the dangers of wrapped assets, and I guess we can go into that a little bit. But like everything boils down at the end of the day to native assets, and if you can't, you need to be able to secure the you need to be able to secure the Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain. And there's no really other method to do that other than either multisig or TSS, at least to my knowledge.
Yeah. I think, and it's something that I've said on this show many times, is obviously a lot of the crypto scene gets a bit lost, I think, in my opinion, because they don't really fully grok the concept that a blockchain can verify and validate the native assets on it. It cannot promise you anything else. So as soon as you have like stable coins, somebody has a USD bank account, boom, you've instantly got custodians, right? As soon as you have wrapped assets, which are redeemable on some other chain by some complicated mechanism, boom, you're going to have custodians. You're going to have problems there. People are saying, well, what about if we do real estate? Or what about if we do our car? Or what about if we do gold or whatever? You're all tracked on the blockchain. Well, there might be use cases for those, but as soon as you get into anything like that, you're going to run into a lot of problems that you can completely avoid if you just stick to the native assets. So I do really like that part of the ThorChain.
There's always a wrapper. There's always a custodian. Like if you tokenize real estate, there's still someone that holds it. If you do it with gold, there's still someone that holds the physical thing. So it's always just some kind of wrapped asset problem. And with all these chains, like that's kind of what's interesting about ThorChain's model is that you're only dealing with native asset settlement. That's why, like, we say all the time on the team, like it's the native asset settlement backbone. Like you send in one native asset and you get out the other. Just like on a centralized exchange, you're just cutting out the account part of it where you have to sign up and KYC and everything. So it's just more of a model where you don't have to worry. Like you're only worrying about the custodial risk for a couple minutes while the swap is actually in flight. Like you still take on risks if you're an LP or you provide assets to the network. But if you're a swapper, then all you really need to worry about is the security during the time of the trade. Otherwise, it's just self-custody as normal. You're just you hold your own keys, you can do your own security. So that's kind of why I think ThorChain is kind of poignant, because it really boils down to the base layer of the chain itself and interacting with the assets on that chain without saying, okay, we're going to take those, we're going to wrap it into our own, we're going to custody all of it, and then issue out, some asset that the network controls. So it's really just tapping into liquidity on different chains, which is why, like, when I first heard about ThorChain, I was like, wow, this is like a really interesting way of doing things, and something that makes a lot more sense than like a Uniswap and like wrap Bitcoin type of model.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of that, we got to check in on the price, which we do every episode. This week, Bitcoin Cash is $230.61 US, slightly up. One BTC buys 182.6 BCH, down slightly, and one ETH buys 9.6 BCH, which is flat. Rune, which is the native token of ThorChain, we'll get into it in a second, is at number 40 on the coin market cap currently. It's had a big pump recently, actually, up to $5.90 US, and one BCH therefore is 39.08 Rune. So speaking as somebody who spends all day working with tech that's about swapping one coin for another, what do you make of the crypto markets recently? Are we coming into a bull run? What's the story there?
I mean, I have no special insight, but I mean, you can't help but feel like we are, right? Especially with ETFs on the horizon. Anyone that doesn't want to be here is long gone. So I don't see any reason why why we wouldn't be. Although I could be completely wrong. Honestly, there's no one in the world that can tell you definitively one way or the other. So I wouldn't claim to know any better. But you know, as long as we don't go anywhere, like we can just do this stuff with ourselves all day, and other people, you can either join us or not join us. So I mean, that's the way I feel about it, at least. Like we just have to build something that's good enough for other people to want to use, and then if it gains adoption, then great, then price goes up just naturally.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking for the long run, I love that. Fundamentals. Okay, so let's get into it a little bit then. We'll just kind of launch straight into it, but I think for a lot of our listeners, we're just going to need to go back to the start and give them a bit of a run through of what actually is ThorChain and how it works. We already sort of touched on it a little bit, but just the basics are, and I'll give my explanation. You can then correct or elaborate if I'm wrong. So from what I understand, so it's a cross-chain DEX, a sort of decentralized exchange. Technically, it's not a bridge. So it's not that you're moving assets from one to another. You're actually trading them, where you're sort of selling one to buy another or vice versa. It has BTC, ETH, BCH, Litecoin, Doge, BNB, AVAX, and some Cosmos stuff, which I didn't really know what that was, but it must be something in crypto. The idea is that the validators, of which there is currently apparently 104, run a full node of all those different chains. And the way that you can do a distributed swap is that you can submit an order on any chain by putting data into your transaction. So in a Bitcoin chains, that would be an op return, but every chain has kind of something similar. And then the ThorChain nodes are watching the blockchain, obviously, and they're watching those op returns. And when they see an order being put in, then they pick up on it, and then they do a swap of your coin A for Rune to get some Rune, and then they swap Rune for the other one on the chain that has the message is going to, and the address that it's going to on the other side. And then if you're doing a massive swap, you can also chunk it up into little pieces, so that even if there's not necessarily tons and tons of liquidity in the pools, you can still get a large amount through. And then it operates the same with regards to those Rune swaps, similar to every other DEX, which is that if you put asset A and asset B, which in this case will always be Rune, so you have asset A and Rune, and you put an equal amount of them into the pool, then people can like sort of put in one and take out another, and the pool adjusts the price so that the ratio is maintained. How'd I do?
Yeah, you actually nailed it. I think you completely killed that explanation of what ThorChain is. I don't actually think I could do better than that. I think you did a super good job. Yeah, so I mean, I'll just try and rehash what you said. Honestly, you did so well on that I am super impressed. So yeah, ThorChain is both a blockchain and a decentralized exchange, and it just does native asset settlement. That's its primary purpose. So you're right. Every single one of the ThorChain nodes, which there's 104 of them. I'll take your word.
Who runs those?
So those are run by different anonymous node operators. They have to put up a very large stake of Rune, and that's part of the economic security of the network we can talk about. And if I get too deep into any of these topics, kind of reel me back in a little bit because I might, there's a lot of
Not too
intertwined
deep.
topics that I might get. Yeah.
Just go for it,
Okay.
mate. This audience is
Yep,
pretty hardcore in Bitcoin Cash, okay? So you're talking to the tech heads here. Just go for it.
for sure. Um, so yeah, so Nine Realms is a node operator for ThorChain. There's plenty of other active node operators. There's a whole community of them. We have a Discord where node operators can publicly talk with each other, and that's where everything goes on. So the whole point is for the node operators to be as anonymous and capture resistant as possible because they're the ones that actually control the funds on the network. So yeah, so there's 104 nodes. There's less actual operators than there are nodes, but that's just the way that the network functions. So
Yes.
there's 104 actual nodes that basically run the entire network. Every single one of those nodes, they all have a connected, Bitcoin blockchain, full node, Bitcoin Cash, every single connected chain. So I think you mentioned all of them. There's UTXO chains, so that's Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Dogecoin. There's EVM based chains, so there's Ethereum mainnet. There's Avalanche. There's Binance Smart Chain, and then there's Cosmos based chains, which is ThorChain itself. So there's Rune. There's Binance Beacon Chain, which is the old Binance chain that we still have, and Cosmos Hub, which is Atom. So those are all the chains that ThorChain runs. So every single one of those validators, they run the ThorChain node itself, and they also run every single one of those nodes. So they observe the state of every single one of those chains, and then they use threshold signatures to essentially create an address on every single one of those chains. So it says, oh yeah, this is our vault on Bitcoin Cash, and it is constantly
Each
scanning
node
every
does.
block.
Hang on. Each node has
Yep.
their own deposit address.
No, so the network collectively has a couple of deposit addresses. So I would say there's probably there's between 3 and 5 Bitcoin Cash addresses that the network holds at any given moment. So the nodes come together in groups of about 20 and form a big party, essentially. So it uses threshold signatures to have shared custody of that one address. So I think there's between 3 and 5. It's probably 4 addresses right now. It could be 5. So it essentially is constantly scanning those 3 or 4 addresses to say, did we get any new coins this block? And it's like, no, continue. So ThorChain kind of exists on its own time, but every single block is always scanning every single connected chain to see if it received any coins. And then, just as you said, it's constantly looking for memos that are attached to those inputs into its vaults. And the memo, which is an op return for UTXO chain, it goes through a smart contract router on the EVM chains, and then in Cosmos chains, it's just a memo. I believe that's part of the transaction types. There's the memo embedded in it, and and in that memo, the user puts in, hey, take this Bitcoin Cash, send it to this Ethereum address, make sure I don't get any less than this amount. And essentially, so it takes those coins and then it swaps them for Rune. Rune is the liquidity and security asset, which we can go into later. And it's an important part of the design that Rune exists. So everything is swapped to Rune, and then on the other end, Rune is swapped to the other coin. So Bitcoin Cash to Rune, and then from Rune to Ethereum. And then the Ethereum is sent out on the Ethereum blockchain. The nodes come together and they say, hey, this transaction is valid. Everything looks good. Let's come together and sign out this amount of funds that we all agree upon to sign out. And then the funds are signed out and they observe that they did it. And everyone says, good job. And that's pretty much the life cycle of a transaction on ThorChain for a swap. So you're in and out of native assets. So it's literally just an AMM that runs on its own blockchain that observes everything going on to every connected chain. think Jeremy's frozen there.
I think we might have lost Jeremy,
Hello?
folks. Oh,
Yep,
Hello,
there he
I'm
is.
back. Okay. So
He's back.
there's no mining, right? So it's proof of stake with staking the rune to run your node.
Yes, exactly. So one of the core features of ThorChain is economic security. And that kind of goes back to the problem of like, how do you secure the Bitcoin between anonymous rotating parties without it being captured in any kind of way? So in order to become a ThorChain validator, you have to put up massive amounts of rune. I believe you need around 900K rune in order to bond in at this moment. So you need a lot of rune in order to bond in. And also in every pool, everything is paired with rune. So it creates this relationship between how much is at stake by the validators and then how much is secured on the external chains. Because let's say that every validator, they just put up Bitcoin as the collateral, and then someone wants to steal all the Bitcoin. Well, then both the stake and the liquidity can be stolen in some kind of attack against the network. So because everything is in Rune, if you were to steal all the liquidity in the network, Rune is worth absolutely nothing because it's not securing anything on the network. And you can also create this hard relationship between the amount of liquidity and the security of the network, because you can guarantee that there's always more bonded by the nodes. There's more rune bonded by the nodes than there is value that they're securing. So that's what we mean by economic security. And no other crypto network does this. Is it ensures that there is always more at stake than there is to be stolen. So it's always more profitable to play by the rules of the network and to properly validate blocks rather than to try and collude. Because even if you were to run 2/3 of the network, if you were to try and Sybil attack the network and buy up all the rune, and you put up that much rune, try to steal everything in all the vaults, you've just lost more money by doing that because you just lost your entire rune stake, which is now at zero because you just stole everything from the network. You've lost more than you possibly could have gained because the amount of liquidity is capped by the it's correlated to the amount of rune in the bond. So there's a direct correlation between the amount of liquidity that the network supports and the amount of stake that the nodes put up. So it's a very important relationship to make sure that you're not securing $200 million worth of assets, but the validators only put up 50 million in bond. Then it would be profitable for them to collude and to try and steal all the funds that are on the network. So that's an important part of the infrastructure.
Yeah, so you've got a sort of over collateralized type of situation with a sort of proof of stake system. Okay, that's making sense to me. And then obviously, so you said it was about 900,000 runes, so it's about $6 per rune now. That's 5.5 million US. Is that sounding right?
Yep, that sounds about right. You need a lot of money to run a Thor node, and you need technical expertise because you need to be able to run all of the connected chain, all the connected chains. You need to be pretty technically savvy to be a node operator. So there's a high bar for the validators on the network, and there's good reason for that. You can't have low quality node operators securing hundreds of millions of dollars of liquidity on the network, and they need to have more at stake than there is liquidity on the network. So that's pretty much the whole architecture. And that was one of the things that really impressed me about the chain when I first heard about it, is just the hard relationship between liquidity and security is just it's something that no one does today. Everyone kind of hand waves it away, saying like, oh yeah, the nodes will be
as to whatever,
kind of altruistic and not
economically incentivized.
You need some kind of if no bridges do this. They either use a trusted federation where there's some kind of entity or multiple entities that are they use their brand or their name to run a bridge and say, yeah, we're not going to steal any of these funds because us, like we're these guys. So a lot of most bridges do something like that, where it's some kind of authoritarian validator set. ThorChain's permissionless. You just have to stake enough Rune in order to churn in. Or you can just churn in as a validator, but there's no guarantee that they're actually putting up more than they could steal in some kind of an attack scenario where you're trying to make out with everything. Because when you're dealing with native assets, that's the tough thing. Is if those assets get stolen, like if you have the ability to sign out those assets and somehow, you can just sell them on another marketplace, on a DEX, on Coinbase or whatever. There's you need to be able to control the exogenous assets and then make it so the stake goes to zero if the assets are actually stolen. So it's just a pretty cool kind of architecture for the network to be able to say, because you can't secure it with smart contracts, right? So you kind of need this economic guarantee that they can't be stolen in a profitable way. Not that they couldn't be stolen if you just if you didn't care about if you just wanted to watch the world burn, that is certainly possible. But no rational economic actor would burn $150 million to steal 75.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this sort of potentially has the same, and I'm not saying this is unique to ThorChain in any regard, but it can have the same problem that any sort of proof of stake or even proof of work system has, which is that you're creating an economic system within your chain. So if somebody could put a short on Rune outside of ThorChain and then engineer a collapse within the ThorChain ecosystem, potentially they could earn more from that outside short than from the damage done inside of the network. But that's true on any network, and all you're doing is trying to really raise the cost and the economic disincentive not to do that as high as possible, which it sounds like is what the game plan is here.
Yeah, there's and that reason particularly is something that we are keenly aware of, and that's why it's very important that Rune's primary market is its own AMM, because you can't just synthesize Rune out of nothing. It's all on its own native blockchain. So if the primary network for Rune liquidity is always on the chain itself, which it is today, and that's why we don't export Rune or send it out via IBC or wrap it and put it on we don't do things try and get centralized exchanges to list it. We don't care, or nor do we want that. It's not advantageous at all to the chain for Rune to be listed everywhere. It really doesn't matter. The best place, the most productive place for it is in the network. And you could probably short it on Binance, but how much there's nowhere near as much liquidity on Binance as there is on ThorChain itself for the Rune asset. It's 2 orders of magnitude, maybe a little less than that, but 2 orders of magnitude the most liquid exchange for the asset. So it's really important that the chain itself and the AMM is the most liquid place, because otherwise you could potentially do some kind of attack like that where you short it on you short it on the centralized exchange that all the liquidity is on, and then you steal all the assets, and then then you made a huge killing. But if the primary market is always the AMM, then would be incredibly difficult to engineer an attack like that. And if you are doing that, you're with some KYC entity on some centralized exchange anyway. There would certainly be no way to get away with something like that without people knowing.
I don't know.
Who you are. I don't think there'd be
I don't know, but
just get away with that.
But we've seen a lot of people get away with a lot of shit. But this does seem like a very clever system. So the real question then is, what's the issuance policy of the Rune, and especially historically, where did it all come from, right? Because for something, it's like a lot of these networks get started with a huge stack in the hands of some foundation or whoever, who are then basically calling the shots from there on out. How did ThorChain do its initial distribution and ongoing issuance?
Yeah, sure. So I wasn't around at the very, very beginning, obviously, like I said before. So, but what I do know is, so there's 500 million tokens. There were some that were sold to some seeded investors that were needed for R&D. I think the initial raise was something like 2.5 million. I'm not exactly sure how many tokens there are. As of today, everything is completely unlocked. Like I think the team took the original team took probably around 8% of the tokens, something like that. It's fairly small compared to a lot of other networks, and honestly, like I'm not too. It's been so many years since then. I believe the original distribution was in 2018. That it's been quite a bit of time since then. Things have distributed fairly well from what I've like just seen looking on chain. Now that we moved to like our own blockchain, originally it was just a distribution on Binance. I think there was an ICO on Binance in 2018, maybe mid 2018. And then there's a treasury that was funded using selling tokens. And let's see, that's probably about it for the original distribution. I believe most of the seed investors are exited. Everything is unlocked at this point. It's all free floating, and there's nothing that gets minted. Like there isn't an unlimited supply of the asset. There's a hard cap at 500 million tokens. So everything that will exist does exist today. There's a reserve, which it's a module on ThorChain, so it's an address controlled by the network itself that distributes block rewards to validators and to LPs. So every block it gives basically a little bit of Rune to the validators and a little bit to the LPs. So the monetary policy is essentially everything is unlocked at this point. Like anyone that had any kind of early distribution has been free to sell it for probably about 6 months now, at least. And a lot of seed investors have gone and left on to do other things, and other people have stepped in their place. So I mean, I think it's pretty good to see that there's no more like unlocks or anything coming from anyone that was pretty early to this thing. I certainly was not myself. I only joined the team in early 2022. So
Yeah.
that's the story as far as I know it.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind. I don't have a big, dog in the fight here, but I just think it's interesting because I know for sure that a lot of my listeners they will instantly be very paranoid about any new token or any, obviously BCH community, very purist, like the original Satoshi, fair, mine to everyone in the world, blah, 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 right? So, and that's fine, it's completely legitimate for a project to do things a different way. And it sounds like there's been more thought into that on ThorChain than your typical ICO pump and dump.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of what I appreciated as someone that got into the community. Just like, they're being like personally, I would not recommend people to just go buy Rune to speculate on it. Like if you want to, the two reasons why you'd want Rune is to either be a liquidity provider or to be a node operator. And those are, two different, types of people who have different risk profiles and things like that. They're like, there isn't much use just buying and holding Rune. There is use, either staking it as a node operator. You can contribute to a bond, and that's obviously like what Nine Realms business. So what part of what Nine Realms business is just running validator nodes. Or there's obviously just providing liquidity on the chain. But there's no real actual value that you do that you give by just buying the token and holding onto it and selling it at a later price, or just speculating on it. So that's why it doesn't, you don't really need to convince people to buy the asset, because the network it needs the asset to function, because that's what gives it its whole security mechanism. But at the same time, you don't need to hold Rune to interact with the network. Like all you need is to be able to send a swap on an external network. You don't ever need to touch Rune. You don't need to do anything with it. Only thing I would, if you have Rune, you either stake it in a node or you provide liquidity, and that's really the only two uses for it.
Right. Yeah, but obviously there is always going to be demand as people are trying to pass through from one to the other. And that's why it pairs everything against Rune, right? So there's no like direct BTC to BCH swap. Yep. For instance, it has to go through the 2 hops of Rune on each side. So then you're generating demand for those tokens and creating the the value that then secures the network, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't help to, if you're just a speculator, like I wouldn't say to just go and buy it. Like if you want Rune, either be an LP or, bond to a node, because that's where the value really accumulates to, not to people who just, buy and hold and try and sell for another price later. Because, there really isn't much value to that. You're just a scalper or something like that, and that's how I look at it. At least, like, if you want to contribute value to the network, then you provide liquidity or you help secure the network in that way.
Yes, and when you said that, so there's the sort of reserve that is paying out the
Yep.
block rewards up until 500 million Rune. How many are issued now, and how many are left to go? And also, I assume that the transaction fees that are generated by the network, they must then presumably feed back into that reserve to make this a self-sustaining system, right?
Yeah. So the reserve so it's not profit seeking. It definitely is like an altruistic type thing. But it does have profit centers. So like, yeah, when you do a transaction, a fee is paid to the reserve. It's like a small one, maybe like $1 or two for each swap. So there's an income source, and there's also just expenses that the reserve has. So looking right now, the reserve is about 140 million Rune in the reserve right now. There's 85 million that's currently deployed, 60 million on standby, and it emits it on a similar curve to the like the original like Bitcoin halving mechanism,
An
but without
asymptotic.
yeah, it's just on a smooth curve, essentially decreasing every block. Like every block it emits like point, or maybe like 1 or 2 Rune or something like that. It's just
whatever.
and it slowly gets smaller and smaller. And trying to see exactly how much it sends out each day. But there is one interesting aspect to this, which kind of goes in line with the rewards and the economic security thing. As I look this up, so one interesting thing about the rewards distribution of ThorChain is it's called the incentive pendulum, which is one of the cool things that kind of impressed me about the network. So the reserve and all of the fees from every swap, it gets distributed to both the liquidity providers and the nodes, right? Like there's two parties. But what split does it send from one to the other really depends on the ratio of liquidity and security. So like I said before, like the network always maintains this economic security. As it needs more security, it sends more of those rewards to the nodes to give them more room. And then if the network becomes way over secured, like there's way more Rune that's being staked than is needed to secure what's in the network, it sends more of those rewards to liquidity providers. So it's always trying to send the proper amount of Rune in order to incentivize the right party on the network in order to create a good balance. So the balance is, I think, like 2 to 1, where you want twice as much Rune staked as it secures in external value from the network. So that's kind of like the sort of the function of the reserve. And now that's given me enough time to look up. I think it's around 35,000 Rune a day it sends out between the LPs and the nodes.
Right. Okay. So if the reserve runs out, if the transaction fees aren't enough to replenish, the reserve at that rate, then I guess what the reward just drops to whatever the transaction fees can sustain.
Yeah, essentially. So the right, like for the past 2-3 years, the reserve has been slowly trickling down. So it let's see, like a year ago, January 2022, it was giving out 43,000 Rune per day, essentially, between all the different parties. Now it's down to 33,000, and it's going to slowly asymptote until it gets to the point where the income is equal to the expenses.
Yes.
So it'll continually go down until it eventually reaches that point where things just kind of balance out naturally.
Yeah. No, it does seem like a very clever and well thought out system, because when you were saying about balancing the security, the LPs versus the validators and making sure they get the right amount of capital, the obvious question to me was, well, where are you going to get a price feed? Because you can only calculate the value of the security if you have a price feed, but the price feed is kind of built in because you already know the ratio for each of the assets that the rune is in the liquidity pools with. So you already have an inbuilt price oracle for your rune token against each of those other assets by default. So it actually ties together quite nicely without needing an external input in that way. It's clever, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things. You don't need an oracle. It's just the ratios between everything. So you know exactly how much security there is in relation to the external network, the external assets. So you can say, we know we have twice as much rune as there is worth of Bitcoin on this network without ever having to know the actual price of Bitcoin in dollar terms. You can just know the different ratios between the assets and just derive everything.
Yeah. Very, very clever. And recently the rune price has been skyrocketing. I mean, you were saying don't speculate on this, but it seems like either people have been and/or the network has been getting a ton of traction recently. What's the story there? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of traction recently. I mean, there definitely is speculators for sure. I wouldn't recommend speculating on any of this stuff, but there definitely is. But there's been a lot of adoption coming recently, mostly because of one feature that was released called streaming swaps, which you kind of alluded to earlier, where essentially what the network can do is split up a big swap for you into multiple smaller ones to get less slippage. So essentially you can fill liquidity demands over like an hour or a couple of minutes rather than in one instant. So if you're doing like $1 million swap, in a $5 million pool on Uniswap or some other AMM, you're just going to get screwed. Like you're going to get absolutely eaten alive. You're going to get barely anything out of that trade just because of slippage. You're just going to get it's not going to be good. But because ThorChain kind of is on another axis, like it runs on its own block time. So it exists intra Ethereum block, intra Bitcoin block. So essentially what it can do is break your big trade up into 100 smaller trades and say, let's put a little bit through right now, and then arbs can come in and rebalance the prices, and then it does another little bit in another block, and then another little bit in another block. And then by the time your trade is filled, it just broke up your trade 100 times. It batches that all together in one outbound and sends it to you. So that was a lot of what people didn't like about ThorChain, because the prices in terms of like how much you pay in liquidity fees were really high, because just another way of securing the network and making sure people don't try and price manipulate, because we don't use an oracle. So by being able to break up your trade across the time dimension, it just gives such a better experience. And now we actually have better pricing than centralized exchanges, because we essentially aggregate liquidity from all of them. So we're giving better price execution a lot of the time. Not all the time. We're going to get there this cycle for sure. Just giving better price execution. But now you can actually make, $1 million trades on ThorChain with virtually no execution and no execution difference. It goes as low as 5 basis points, and it essentially just TWAPs your order over a time period and tries to get you as close to 5 basis points as possible. And arbs can come in and rebalance, and everyone's pretty happy now that you can make big trades. It's a lot easier for people to kind of take the pill and swallow it a little bit and actually make trades on the network rather than just using a centralized exchange and saving a little bit of money.
So when was this streaming swaps released?
I'm going to say August.
Okay, all right, because I'm just having to give the viewers some context. So the price chart is in July, Rune was at 95 cents. Then by 2 months ago, by middle of October, it was at about $1.50 or $1.60, and now it's up near $6. So it's essentially quadrupled in that 2 months, probably as a result, or at least partially influenced by the release of this streaming swaps in August. That timeline, that all checks out. things take a little while to build hype. So yeah, I guess you must have been seeing huge growth in the community and the surrounding hype and excitement. How's that been for the project, and where do the Thor Chads, right? Is the Thor Chainers,
Yeah.
the B caches and the Thor Chad. Where do the Thor Chads hang out? What's the main spot?
Yeah. So there's a couple different venues. A lot of where the core dev community is in the ThorChain developer Discord. It's a great place if you just want to be a fly on the wall. It's a pretty low noise, high signal space where all the developers and people that actually build ThorChain go. It's where the node operators go to see what's the latest. And Nine Realms team is all there. So that's definitely the highest signal place to be. And everyone's welcome to just come be a fly on the wall and see what's going on. We all build in public. Obviously, ThorChain's fully open source. All the nodes can talk in there. There's actually one interesting thing to bring up. Every node has this thing called make relay, where they can just do a command to make relay, and it sends an anonymous message into the developer Discord. So nodes can actually, have conversations and talk fully publicly, but in the Discord. So nodes can actually post messages like, "Oh, I'm getting errors on this," or so people can communicate with nodes in a way that is not like some kind of private like setting where people can like collude, but like or do things behind the scenes, but like some place where literally everyone you can just join this Discord and just see what they're saying. And that's pretty much where everyone in like the community itself is. And yeah, we have like tendrils kind of reaching all out because ThorChain itself is just infrastructure. So it's not like, I mean, there are a lot of super nerds who are, they call them ThorChads, that are like really into the infrastructure of this whole thing. But really, the end user of ThorChain is whoever uses the projects that uses ThorChain. So like Trust Wallet as one of the big examples. All their swap service is powered by ThorChain. Upcoming Ledger users being ThorChads of the future, using ThorChain's infrastructure. So it's like the ThorChain's goal is to be that kind of invisible backend infrastructure that you don't really need to know what it is. You don't need to know how it works or anything like that. Whatever wallet or app you use just uses it in the back end, and you can just make your trades for basically no slippage without ever having to make an account. You just send the coins and it's just done. So there are plenty of people that use it now without knowing it, and there's going to be way more people in the future that use it without knowing it. So, but the main place is on Discord, Twitter. Everyone hangs out on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, definitely follow the ThorChain handle. There's some noise, but it's always it's pretty informational thing. I do Twitter Spaces too with the ThorChain handle, so people can come hang out in there and talk with some ThorChads and ask questions. Come hang out, do whatever. Twitter and Discord are the two best places.
Okay, all right, cool. And what is the sort of project governance, especially in light of how do you decide which chains to add, right? Because there's all obviously 20,000 different crypto coins. Not all of them are actually even separate networks, right? But you have to be monitoring in this model, and the more chains you add, the higher the burden on the node operators, who are already, it sounds like, having to do a pretty titanic effort to maintain up to 10 or more different individual nodes running at any one time. And so how does the chain decide, firstly, what to work on or what protocol upgrades to add, and secondly, which chains to add into this whole schema?
Yeah, so it's all done by the node operators. The node operators literally are the network, and that's something I probably didn't understand early enough. Is just that the nodes are the ones who process all the ThorChain blocks. They read all of the external chain data. They're the ones who take on the monetary risk of Rune. They need to make sure they're always securing more than than what's on the network externally. So the nodes are the end all be all of governance. And like we have a process called ADRs, which is architectural design record, where nodes can, submit big architectural changes. A lot of it's done by the Nine Realms team, so by us, because we're a major node operator on the network, and we do core development for ThorChain as well. So it's a collaborative effort between Nine Realms, between some of the OGs who've been around since the beginning, people like Chad Barriford, and then there's some other community contributors who contribute code to the protocol. So the Nine Realms team is a major contributor to that, but definitely not the nowhere near the only one that has some kind of say. There's plenty of node operators out there that have their own opinions about what should be added, what shouldn't. We're just pretty active and vocal in the space, and kind of what we do is we enact the will of the node operators. So there's a protocol within ThorChain called Mimir, which is another one of those like Norse names. Mimir, I think Mimir was like some messenger of Odin or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, it's essentially this protocol in ThorChain where you can change constants, and you can say, I vote for this constant to be this value. And we use that for votes too. So if there's, someone will post something in the Discord, and then there be some kind of vote on it where the node operators, one node equals one vote. So if you get over a certain majority, over 66%, then whatever change you're trying to do is instantly done if it's in the code already. And if not, you can do symbolic votes too, where you just do it with Mimir. It doesn't actually correspond to anything in the protocol, and then us, the Nine Realms team, or the core team, or whoever else will build that feature and then put it in. So new chains have been kind of like a contentious topic because so many people have different opinions. And obviously, it all comes down to the nodes and what the nodes want to do. Like, here's a recent example. We recently added Binance Smart Chain after a long time. We had a vote on it. This was like, oh my god, this vote was like a kind of a shit show, to be honest, because we put out like a call in the community Discord. We were like, all right, like in 2 weeks, whoever has the most votes, will be the next chain that the Nine Realms team builds for a connection. And then community started coming in and bombarding with like, oh yeah, we want this chain because of this reason. We want this chain because of this reason. And it just added so much noise to the equation. But at the end of the day, it's the nodes that just to have the ability to add a chain or don't add a chain. Like no one else can really affect a decision other than whether they run that code or whether they don't run that code. So we ended up on Binance Smart Chain. We finally got Binance Smart Chain back in September, I want to say. And now the nodes are thinking about removing Binance Smart Chain. It's just
the Binance Smart Chain community probably not too thrilled about that, right?
Probably not, but I mean, yeah, the Binance Smart Chain is a piece of work for sure. It is not really up to the standards of the ThorChain node operators, just in terms of like its quality. Yeah, and it's extremely it's caused other problems within ThorChain itself. Because let's say one chain is paused, like we had to pause trading for Bitcoin Cash because the nodes can't keep in sync because of problems on the Binance Smart Chain network. Like the Binance Smart Chain is, man, it's some fork of ETH for sure. So yeah, some nodes are calling to just remove it from they're calling to Ragnarok it from the chain completely and just say like we're done with this. Like, so we've yet to see whether we're going to remove BSC or not, but it does seem like things are trending
that's
in
ever
that
been
direction.
removed?
No, you might have heard of something called Terra Luna.
Yes.
That's something we removed in the past. That's caused a lot of other issues in the past as well. That was the unanimous decision to remove that chain, obviously. And actually,
pre or post rug? Post
yeah.
rug.
Post that
collapse,
was
implosion, yeah,
post collapse. But so what actually happened was because the chain itself was being DDoSed, essentially the nodes couldn't keep up with the tip of the Terra. So in order for chains to run properly, they need to know what's going on at the instant of the tip of that network, of what's happening on that block. So because the the nodes were running so far behind, and this is literally a problem with the chain itself. And this is something that like most other people don't really have to think about. Is just like if you're not up to date, you can't keep trading on that network in a safe way, because you could send people out funds and not know that you sent people out funds, and you can cause a lot of problems with ThorChain, and you could lose LPs a lot of money. So the chain itself will automatically pause trading for that chain if it gets out of sync and it just can't agree upon what block it's on, where the transactions are. So I think we paused, or the chain itself paused Luna trading probably around like $30 or something like that. So we actually saved LPs a lot of money by the chain itself not even being able to keep up with the Ragnarok of of Terra Luna. Is we actually were able to help make sure that LPs just didn't lose every cent that they had just by dumping trillions of Luna into the pools. We were able to just process withdrawals at that price and then give people back some rune rather than just giving them back nothing, essentially. So it's not the first time we've had a chain removed, but it would be the first time we would remove a chain if this happens. No one's voted on this yet, but I've heard some
Right.
Like our node operators and Nine Realms, we are against not Bitcoin Cash, against Binance Smart Chain at this point, just because it's just such a terrible chain to operate.
Well, see,
Essentially,
this is where, I also kind of quite like this element to the system, right? Where, so the Bitcoin Cash network benefits by being part of ThorChain, not only because it's obviously available for Bitcoin Cash users, but because you guys will run, all your node validators will run a Bitcoin Cash node, thus strengthening our own network, right? So
yep.
that's a huge win for us. But not the price, but maybe the sort of barrier to entry is that our network has to be running smoothly. Like, I imagine that obviously what the node operators, they might have their own criteria, but I imagine what they're looking for firstly is a chain that's going to have volume or an active user base. Secondly, a chain that they want to use. I imagine they have their own opinions on crypto, and if they like a certain one, they're more likely to want to add it. And then thirdly, not to be a pain, like you're saying, if your own network is not holding up, is, I don't know, making stupid updates or becoming unmanageable or untenable in some way, then that will reflect in the node operators being more likely to either not want to add you or kick you off. So it's kind of encouraging on both sides. The what do you call them? The networks that you're hosting essentially are the ones that are making your life easy and also being valuable, providing value in terms of a lot of people want to swap with them. And then on the other hand, that also symbiotically benefits the networks themselves. That's a really cool element to this.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, but 100%. And yeah, if you're hard forking all the time and doing last minute updates and last minute hard forks and stuff like that, like all the time, like Bitcoin Cash is, and having unstable infrastructure, then it's likely that we can't run we can't safely run your chain, right? Like a centralized exchange, they have the ability to do that because they make the rules, right? They can say, oh yeah, you can just they can pause trading whenever they want. They can change the rules to make it so that they're always going to come out on top and win and be able to provide a good service. But ThorChain really needs to rely on the node data that is being sourced. So if your node data is terrible and it's unstable and we can't run it, then it can't be, we can't use it for the chain, and it causes other problems. So like if Bitcoin Cash is halted, we can't add new validators onto the network. So like we can't send all of our funds to new addresses and churn the network, which we normally do every 3 days. I think it's been paused for a week or two at least, just because of Bitcoin, because of the BNB Smart Chain instability. So it causes structural problems to our network that we need to, make sure that the chains that we're running are like actually worth it. And yeah, that's kind of what's going on there. As for like next chains, I don't know. There's a lot of discussion. We're definitely thinking about Solana, I think, which has caused its own issues with just how heavy that chain is for nodes. It might double the cost of running a Thor node. So we might have some creative solutions around that, or running their upcoming light client or something. But yeah, there's going to be some discussion, I'm sure, about adding new chains. And really what we're looking for is just like something that people are going to use, and something that it makes economic sense for the node operators to run. Like those are really the two main things that they want to see. They want to make a lot of money, so they want as much volume as possible. So the chains that are going to generate the most trade volume, like that's what's going to be added. And if it's terrible, and if it costs too much, and if the node sucks, then it's going to get kicked out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, obviously, yeah, BCH is kind of never down because it is a properly decentralized project, and also the node teams take it very seriously. We don't just do one regularly timed upgrade a year, so I think we're probably doing okay on that on both of those fronts. But yeah, certainly the more that we can grow our own community, which we're trying to do anyway, right? But as an incidental benefit, that would be nice, is that then there'll be more volume generated through this and so forth. So that sounds really good. Is there no support, or is there any thought about supporting assets on top of networks? Like, does ThorChain have USDT? Does it have ERC20s? Or might it have cash tokens, which is what the BCH community has now? Is there anything involved in that, or is it just the base layer assets or the native assets?
Yeah, so there's kind of three different types of networks that are on ThorChain. EVM networks, they do have tokens that are like we do have ERC20 tokens for Smart Chain, for Ethereum, and for Avalanche. So yeah, you can just add a pool for any ERC20 token on ThorChain. It needs to be whitelisted in Thor node, so you need to put in a PR if you want to get like your token whitelisted. But you can essentially just add whatever ERC20 token into it and make a ThorChain pool out of it. You definitely need to add some extra architecture on top of the UTXO chains in order for that to be supported. But I don't see why it wouldn't be possible. Someone would just need to create that and make that a thing. Just be able to process the blockchain data and to just know whether it has that token or not. But like I know, like the Nine Rogues team, like we've been talking about, moving more away from the long tail assets besides stablecoins, and just moving more towards the short tail, and just supporting the layer one asset, and kind of just leaving the tokens to like to other dexes in the space. And kind of the reason for that is because obviously there's dexes that exist on most chains with smart contracts. Well, there's tons of dexes out there, and they're always going to be the ones that have the most liquidity, most likely for those assets. And because we have to source our own security, those other blockchains, they can just rely on the chain's security to secure the assets, but we actually have to bring our own security. So if we just start securing, so many of these random tokens, we're actually eating up our own security space, just kind of offering something that other dexes can offer for essentially there's no cost for them to offer millions of tokens that just, it has trade volume or not. It really doesn't matter to them. But for us, it really needs to add some kind of value. So stablecoins do, because obviously there's lots of trade activity that's associated with those, and there's some other reasons too, which we can get into, like our own stablecoin oracle that ThorChain has under the hood. But okay. Yeah, we're kind of moving to focus more just on the short tail and get to the long tail assets through something that we have called DEX aggregation, where ThorChain can essentially sign a transaction out of ThorChain into another DEX, or in from another DEX, and make a swap. So that's kind of more of the direction we've been going towards, rather than just saying, oh yeah, we'll just do everything on our chain. We're totally fine just saying like, hey, we're here for the most economically significant aspects of it, and then tokens, those someone else can do those where they don't have to worry about security.
Yeah, okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And like you say, you can daisy chain the base asset maybe with another deck. So we'll see how this all plays out, right? But the BCH community is just very excited because in the last 6 months, this cash tokens upgrade, and people are now starting to build, dexes and AMMs and issue NFTs and all that sort of stuff on BCH. So it's caused a lot of focus and excitement in the community. And it sounds like as time goes on, maybe there could be those kind of integrations as well too, whether it was just that ThorChain would then interact with the BCH DEX itself, that then you could swap like through any token straight out onto BTC, onto ETH, or vice versa. Like there's tons of possibilities there, but it would just be about where in the exact architecture it sits, and that's not necessarily intended to be on the ThorChain like main chain itself. That makes a lot of sense to me. Now, part of the reason I have you on the show as well too is Joel Valenzuela. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I imagine you probably are. He loves ThorChain, and he has been shilling it for the longest time to me and to the BCH community, and that we should look into it and take it seriously and so forth. He made this tweet saying, on most days, the Bitcoin Cash pool on ThorChain generates more in fees than the actual Bitcoin Cash network itself, which is true. The BCH network currently does about $350 a day in fees, and the ThorChain BCH pool does between $250 and up to $1,500 in fees per day, which is pretty incredible. I guess this is just a result of the huge growth in transactions, right? That's what contributes to the network fees, right? There's no other source other than people paying to transact. Do you have to pay to enter an LP?
No, so you don't pay to enter not a regular LP position. So there's two different types of LPs. There's a dual LP, which is Rune and Bitcoin Cash, and there's savers. You do pay to enter a savers position but the reason you pay is because there's sort of a swap on the back end. So
right.
Technically, yes, everything is because of swaps. All the fees that are generated at the network are because of swaps, and a lot of that there's either two things. That's either users making swaps, and that's just someone saying, I have this coin, I have Bitcoin Cash, I want to stable up, I'll go to Tether on Ethereum, and they do that. Or it's arbitragers. So if there's like days with really big price action and movements and a lot of volatility, which are the best days on ThorChain to be an LP for 100,000%.
Yes.
The great days for LPs, because they're just raking in fees the entire time, because arbitragers are constantly coming in, buying, selling, and that's probably where you see days like where you get 15, where the LPs make $15,000 collectively in a day just through trading fees. Bigger the trade, the more fees you get, and more volume just means more fees. So those days are very highly welcomed by us.
Yeah. Crypto is never short of volatility. So that seems like a smart, smart business strategy to me. So I had a quick look at these saver vaults just to give the listeners some idea. So currently, according to the stats that I found on the website, 7,300 BCH roughly currently locked, and about a 7% APR on BCH, which is kind of high. So I guess people are keen for more BCH liquidity for people that want to go and look into that. That might be one thing you can do. Obviously, as always, not your keys, not your coins, and just don't put your whole stack into ThorChain, but do a bit of reading.
Yep.
Make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, and maybe put a small amount in there and start earning some yield. Seems fairly reasonable as compared to many other sort of BlockFi centralized type of yield schemes. This sounds like there's actually a lot less chance you're going to have problems. Obviously not none. I don't want to say that and then get this clipped out of context, but it strikes me as more solid than than most of the things, and everyone in crypto is always chasing yield, I guess. Right. I also wanted
Yep.
to ask you
Don't put
about.
your whole stack in. Don't do anything stupid. Obviously, if ThorChain loses, if ThorChain somehow gets hacked and loses all of its Bitcoin Cash, it just signs all of it out and loses it, then you don't have anything left. So like, obviously, like this is DeFi, like it's all PvP, but
Yes.
and also I think it's around 5% right now for Bitcoin Cash. But yeah, I mean, it's Savers is a pretty cool, innovative thing that we do on ThorChain, and yeah, it's single-sided liquidity, so it's backed by the dual LPs. So the dual LPs, they make more yield in return for backing the Savers principal position of just
Mm.
being denominated in BCH. So there's two ways to provide Bitcoin Cash liquidity on ThorChain. If you're long Rune, then you should be a dual LP if you want some extra yield there, or if you just want to be long BCH, then you can also do that on ThorChain and earn a couple percent at least. But obviously, manage your own risk. Don't do anything. Don't do anything stupid. And yeah, I mean, it literally could all fall apart. So I mean, I would definitely do your own research before entering any kind of any kind of DeFi position. Really, you want to know what you're doing. At the very least, all ThorChain is completely open source, transparent, and everyone tries to make collective decisions to make sure that at the very least, your funds can't be mismanaged or misappropriated or done something shady behind the scenes. It's all out in the open. You can see where all the coins are stored and the addresses and the nodes that secure them. So yeah, Savers is a pretty damn cool thing, and hopefully we'll see that kind of replace the black box centralized yield centers where they just loan out your coins. At least with this, you're providing liquidity towards a DEX. So pretty
Yeah,
cool
nice.
innovation, but it's still a very new thing. It's only a year old at this point.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. I was playing around with it. I don't have any coins in there yet, but I was looking into it, and I might have to give it a go, if only for my own education. Now I have to ask you about, there's this incident in March, which again, it kind of put me off ThorChain because this was like the main thing I knew about it, and even though it was probably actually a relatively small thing, it's funny how just, especially in decentralized communities, one small issue or problem just becomes kind of a bit known on social media, and then it really creates a strong impression. The BCH community has been on the wrong end of that many times. But basically, there was some kind of incident with ThorChain where there was an exploit, which you then posted about on Twitter, saying it was due to an exploit on BCH and LTC themselves, not ThorChain. We halted to protect LP funds from an exploit before it was patched. But then, the BCH devs looked into it and found that it wasn't an issue on the BCH side. And then I wasn't really clear how that was all resolved or what was sort of the end goal of it. But it kind of came off that like the BCH community is very particular, very picky about being sort of like accused of missing bugs or things like that, especially when it turned out that it wasn't actually the case. Can you comment on this? What happened here?
Yeah. So I don't 100% remember exactly all of these incidents, right? And I know I did tweet that, and I did, and I remember getting a lot of shit from people, which I probably deserved, to be fair, because I'm not I'm somewhat technical. I'm not a dev or anything like that. So I'm also trying to parse what other people say and then communicate it in some kind of fashion that other people can understand, that are kind of like ourselves, just to know what is going on. And I believe this was an issue. It was not a issue with Bitcoin Cash itself. It was an issue with the way that ThorChain essentially interprets things on Bitcoin Cash and on Litecoin. It was an issue with the UTXO Bifrost. So for some reason, it didn't affect Bitcoin. I do not know why, nor I don't think I would understand these things. But it was some kind of issue with the UTXO chains on ThorChain, and just you know, it may have been some kind of vulnerability that, would allow, something else to happen that could cause a loss of funds. And these things are very technically complex, and I definitely don't pretend to understand them. It's just my job to interpret what other people say and to communicate them. So I don't always do a 100% amazing job of that. So my apologies if I caused any fun to anyone unnecessarily. Sorry about. Yeah, I mean, it kind of boils back to the problem of just like we rely on the chains we um that we source data from to have accurate information. And if there's some kind of problem with our implementation or the chain itself, then that's a vulnerability that could affect the LPs. So like obviously, like in light of some kind of issue coming up, which these issues happen from time to time. They're definitely not uncommon, and they come up on centralized exchanges all the time. You just don't ever see or hear about it because there's no reason for anyone to share that type of information. So yeah, likely just some kind of like UTXO weird like edge case thing where ThorChain thinks that something happened but it didn't actually happen, or vice versa, or some kind of combination of that. I couldn't find the postmortem or anything about that to give you like here's for sure what happened in this scenario type thing. But yeah, I mean some kind of combination of those factors all played into that, and just my own poor communication skills, which it happens from time to time. We have to pause chains, and the node operators have the ability to pause chains on ThorChain to protect the network. So that's essentially the my interpretation of what happened.
Yeah, no, that's like I honestly think that's fine. I think if it was just an honest mistake, it was that's just how it happens. And like you say, there's going to be technical issues and so forth. And obviously, from the BCH side, we want to try and be as forthcoming and in communication as much as we can to help you guys out with your project, because obviously you're choosing to run BCH. We need to help with that as much as possible. But yeah, I think that was really kind of just the issue, is especially in the case where there's no core team on the BCH side, and there also isn't, it sounds like, on the ThorChain side. If things are somewhat
exactly.
distributed, then there's a lot of people
yes.
involved. Yeah, exactly. So things can easily
is very you know how difficult communication is between parties when there's no one person that's responsible for something. It becomes communication is one of the most difficult things in that situation, because there isn't just like, here is the guy that does this and here's the guy that does that. It's like there's the Nine Realms team who will step up for any kind of security incident. There's OGs who have been around. We have a ThorChain security team. They all come together. I listen in just so I kind of know what's going on, and then I try and communicate it. And I'm not always 100% on the ball with the security thing, especially because normally security things are very technically in the weeds, and you can't share
and
too
people
much.
Get touchy about it.
You don't want to share too little. Yeah, and people always come on to us and say like, "Oh, why is this chain paused on ThorChain? I thought this is a decentralized system." Type of thing. They don't realize the complexities of actually running a truly decentralized exchange like this that runs multiple chains. They just know that Uniswap is always up all the time, so that means it's decentralized. Therefore, ThorChain is centralized because we have to pause chains from time to time.
Yes. Okay, we've had a question in the chat from BCH Geek. Says, I like ThorChain. Saw rumblings of some nodes wanting to remove BCH in the far past due to low usage. What's the overall feeling of that in the ThorChain community today? Was going to look at building BCH to ThorChain, but not worth it if uncertain future.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything about that recently. I know people have said that in the past, but I don't see the reason why you do that. So I think the reason to remove a chain is that it's really poor infrastructure, and Bitcoin Cash is fine with that. There's really no issues with the chain itself, which is good. And then the other one being that it's really expensive. So like you could definitely, that's a big argument for BNB Smart Chain too, or something like Avalanche or Cosmos Hub, something that's expensive to run, as in like, Bitcoin Cash costs nothing to run a node on. Like it's basically just there's no extra infrastructure cost that's involved. If it was really expensive, then it might be it'd probably be on the chopping block with how much volume is actually done with it. But being that it's so cheap, I mean, I see no reason why you'd want to remove it, especially it being like a really unique offering that really only ThorChain. I mean, only ThorChain does Bitcoin Cash, as far as I know, in the DEX space, especially cross-chain DEXs. No one does it, so
Yes.
I wouldn't see the argument on why you'd want to remove it, and I would definitely fight to keep it on. So yeah, I don't see a
that's good.
reason why nodes would want to get rid of it. If it was really expensive, say it costs $500 a month or $1,000 a month to run a Bitcoin Cash node, then nodes would probably be losing money running it, and then it would make sense for them to say like, we should probably not run this. But it costs what, like probably like $10 a month to run Bitcoin Cash. Like it costs nothing in comparison to how much the actual like chain infrastructure costs. So like, I don't see the argument to get rid of it. Although, yeah, I did see people like calling for that, but I don't think that was like I don't think it's gonna get anywhere. Really, it wouldn't make sense to me personally.
All right, that's great to hear. Lean, mean, node machines coming in good there.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
we're
it
going to
doesn't
talk
mean they
about.
can't vote to remove it. Like
Yes, they could. Yeah,
they could totally just decide to remove it. So, but I mean, I definitely think there would be a lot of opposition against it. I would oppose that. Like, it's up to them, but at the same time, like, people do have a voice to influence that, and money speaks the most, and it being cheap, that's great. So you can go on.
yes. Yeah, so obviously the best that we can do is just maintain a good reputation in crypto as much as we're able, keep the nodes cheap to run, and obviously also generate as much volume as we can. Makes complete sense. Right, we do have to touch on at least one bit of BCH community news. We've got BCH Guru have launched their private alpha. So this is an NFT project on BCH. It was very exciting because they started making announcements in May, and they had all this really cool artwork and stuff, like a CryptoPunks type of vibe, but with these little BCH Guru characters. And they said that they were going to build out a lot of this sort of cash tokens infrastructure and make a price prediction PvP game with this new upgrade to cash tokens. So the community was very excited to have this new project launch. Now here we are, fast forward 7 months to December, and it looks like they're getting close that they're actually going to ship this. So I've had some word behind the scenes on somebody who got a chance to play around with the app and actually make a couple of PvP price prediction trades. They said that it all actually worked, like they didn't hit any bugs, that maybe there will be some kind of there'll be a lot of refinement needed. Essentially, like with any alpha product, when you first launch it, there's tons of obvious things or user requests that you immediately get flooded with that you need to upgrade. But apparently everything works. You can trade Furu, which is their own token that they airdrop to holders, or BCH. It was just on ChipNet, the test net, but it will be coming to mainnet presumably soon, and that they were generally impressed, and the screenshots look really good. So as a result of that, I had to just bring this up and give them a shout out. I don't know whether you know anything about the BCH Guru project, familiarcow, but whether you do or not, maybe you can just talk about, is ThorChain maybe going to do anything like that? Are they ever going to issue NFTs either on ThorChain or just as a part of the project somehow? And is there also being involved in pricing of all the different assets like we talked about before? Is there any thought about prediction markets or things like that, which also might be the kind of direction that BCH Guru is going in?
No, that's interesting. like I think the ThorChain team we're pretty laser focused on just nailing the decentralized exchange, and there isn't much appetite for adding much stuff beyond that. That definitely had a lot of cool ideas and stuff that you could build kind of on top, and yeah, the reaction is definitely just perfect and tune the machine of of what this is and try and get it to as close to feature complete as possible, and then that's it, and then it's just chains at that point. So probably nothing like that, like prediction markets or NFTs or anything like that. On ThorChain itself, I wouldn't think there'd ever be anything like that. Just perfecting the machine and just making it just as feature complete as possible, and then we get to the real goal of just ossification, where we can just let the network kick back, run, be integrated everywhere into the back end. We can keep working on integrations and try and get to as close as like bug free as possible, and just make sure this thing is as secure as it possibly can be to help scale it up and to be this $100 billion asset AMM. That's the goal.
Yeah. No, very, very cool. And that strategy makes sense. We've just been watching this whole BCH Guru thing very closely on this show because, like I said, it ties into all the cash tokens and all this new stuff. And apparently this new demo that is in the works is also using, I think, some of the cash RPC stuff, which we haven't covered on the show before, and we'll cover in detail at another time. But it's essentially going to be like on MetaMask, when you're approving a transaction, it gives you that kind of page of gobbledygook, like, do you want to approve this token? And you kind of click yes and hope you don't get rugged. The BCH community have been working very hard on making basically a way better version of that, where instead of just kind of granting all permissions and hoping that nothing goes wrong, instead it gives you a very detailed breakdown of what it's accessing, the specific transaction, what inputs are going where, and so forth. So you can see exactly what's going on. It's part of this broader push for so-called native wallets that Emergent Reasons has been talking about a lot. And so I'm hoping that over the next 6 or 12 months, we're going to see a really big improvement in the BCH sort of smart contract scene and everything. And that will probably at some point, I would imagine, also include, like, we'll have a template probably for ThorChain so that people wanting to do swaps in and out can just use a well-vetted, trusted template, and then they're not going to get scammed by somebody trying to do fake fraud ThorChain or whatever, right? So that's just really cool, exciting news, and listeners to the show can just put a pin in that one, and we'll come back to it later, because they'll I'll pick this up when there's more news on that front, but got to keep everyone in the loop. Right, got meme of the week. This one is the grandma meme, which I actually always makes me laugh. It's the young lady sort of helping the grandmother, I don't know, up some steps or something like that, and the grandmother is saying crypto is a threat, and the young helper lady at the retirement home or whatever is saying, sure, grandma, let's get you to bed. And it's from a thread poking fun at Elizabeth Warren, who is obviously Senator Karen in the US, that is constantly trying to whinge and complain about crypto in general, and is been pushing heavily on the regulations recently. There's just a very quick little 15-second clip here that Jet's going to play for you all.
Give me 1 second here. So I've loaded up this link on OBS, right? The same way that I always do it. And I assume this is because of Twitter's API rules or something, but I can now no longer view the tweet.
All right. Well, whatever. We'll just put the link in the chat. We'll edit it in afterwards.
Yeah, I can do that. Cool. Sorry, guys. Blame Elon.
Yes,
Yeah, I got the tweet, and then as
indeed.
soon as I went to scroll up to see any other posts, it wouldn't let me. I hit refresh, and it completely kicked me out.
Right. Well, when you see that clip, it's just Elizabeth Warren saying it's a new threat. It's crypto is the new threat, and North Korea is using it for terrorist financing and stuff. The FUD is just absolutely relentless. I really wish you'd just piss off with all of this, but I mean, we're really kind of at the stage. It's funny how she gets riled up about crypto, every couple months, and then goes for a week and complains about it a lot, and then gets busy with complaining about something else. And then, the crypto community just cracks on. She's like a recurring character in the crypto story that's just always there to give us grief. What do you make of general attempts to FUD crypto on the regulation front? Because that's one area that ThorChain seems to actually be quite strong, right? Being a whole DEX and open source and so forth. You probably shouldn't be fairly clear of the regulators, right? familiarcow. What's the vibe on ThorChain and Elizabeth Warren?
Yeah, I mean, I think things have been going all right now. Like, I think we passed the preliminary stages of actually getting attention from any kind of authorities. I guess one of the things I should have mentioned earlier was back in October, the FTX hacker was allegedly moving some funds through ThorChain, and yeah, I mean that's one of those things that definitely catches the eye of people that you don't really want to be on the wrong side of. So I think like from that angle of things, like things have been going pretty good for ThorChain. Obviously, being one of the most precarious positions of the entire space, and getting it from all angles too, because you get people on one end saying, "Oh, people are using ThorChain to launder funds or something like that," when that's not true, because you can't actually conceal any kind of information. It's all public, and everything is completely on chain. So you can't actually move funds in a way that conceals any kind of information. And then you
But you
have
can get them. You can get them
then you
off
have
a.
the other people. Yeah,
Hang on, but you can like switch it off BTC onto BCH. BCH has better privacy tools. Do some nice cash fusion, and then you're like good to go. So, but
right.
yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly. Like,
obviously you
yeah,
have people
you have
hate that and
you have
people
people
love
who
that,
are
right?
like, yeah, yeah. You have people on both sides that are just like, oh, you're giving like complete privacy to these people and then allowing them to do this. Then you also have the people who are like, this stuff is way too public. We need to make it more private. We need to add Monero like tomorrow. We need to do all this stuff. So it's like we definitely get it from both sides, which is I think that's a good thing. Like when you piss everyone off, that probably means you're doing like a fairly neutral job
Mhm.
in all this stuff. So I think we passed the first test at least. And there's definitely some areas to improve upon just for decentralization and keeping the network censor resistant. One big thing is, so we talked about TSS a little bit before. One of the interesting things that we do is ThorChain encrypts all of those TSS key shares and puts them onto the chain. So we actually publish encrypted key shares onto the chain itself. Um, so what that means essentially is that if some government agency were to call up every cloud service and immediately, I predict that we'd be back up and trading right back as right back as we were within a week. I think we'd be right back up. Um,
Not bad.
but there'd obviously be some kind of interruption because there'd be an interruption of service with the nodes, but because all the key shares are backed up onto the chain itself, all you'd have to do is just spin up another node on another provider, run bare metal. There's plenty of bare metal nodes out there, and people writing guides to run bare metal Thor nodes and things. It'd be very easy to restore service to even if every single node were to be shut down tomorrow. They would be back up within no time because they need to in order to restore their own stake, and they need to they're
Yes.
not just going to abandon their node. That's millions of dollars just down the drain right there. So obviously you need to get back online. I think we'd be back up within a week, even if every single Thor node were to be forcibly shut down in one instant. Which I mean,
It's never
maybe
gonna
something like
happen.
that. Maybe someone could try that kind of attack in the future. I don't think it'd be very fruitful. I think we'd be right back up, and I think there'd be a lot of people rallying behind us if something like that were to actually were to happen.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Sounds good. Obviously, yeah, censorship, resistance and resilience to attack, it's going to be more and more important because one way or another, as time goes on, vulnerable projects eventually they get exploited, whether it's the Terra Luna style economic weakness or speculative stuff, whether it's government attacks and regulation, whether it's hackers, like whatever it is, you've kind of got to be able to handle it all to last in the brutal free market of crypto. So yeah, it's good to hear the
Yep.
ThorChain community taking that seriously. Okay, I got two quick little comment of the weeks. There was two that were so good I had to put them in. Firstly, we've got Ninja Dot, who has ready for 2024 with a picture of their iPad here, on which they have a BCH Guru NFT, a Cash Ninja NFT, some kind of Dogecoin type meme, the BCH price chart, BCH price ticker, the Bitcoin Cash white paper, Selene wallet, BCH Bull, Bitcoin.com wallet, and Paytaka wallet. That is looking like the BCH Fanatics type of iPad there. So I just saw that and it made me laugh. It's like, yep. And the green background, of course, obviously. So this is some real commitment to the cause we got going on right there. And I think showing off how much the scene is improving and diversifying. And Remora 101
Wait,
is
hold on.
also,
I
wait,
think that's a flip phone, like a fold out phone. I don't think that's a tablet.
oh, okay.
Yeah. I just noticed
Could
it. I was
be.
like, what is going on here?
Well, it could be. How big would that be? Like I'm looking at my phone. Like I've got a fairly big phone. If you had it, two of those,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Well, that would almost be the size of a tablet or like a smaller size tablet. Phones are huge these days. I always get the big ones as well too. Like my hands are fairly big, so I'm happy that I don't need like whenever I pick up somebody's like iPhone or whatever, it's like tiny, you can like really like wrap your fingers around the edge. No, give me a nice big Android phone. Yeah, anyway, and then we've got Remora 101, who's also feeling the vibes and says, I'm really proud of how we're doing ATM. The BTC guys can't 2x because we're here and loud and proud. BCH could be dead, but with devs and builders and podcasters and mods and memers and everyone doing a part, it's still here. This is great. Green heart, smiley, smiley. So I guess that gives you a bit of a sense that the BCH community is starting to feel themselves and be in a pretty good vibe. Familiar Cow, we give every guest on the show a chance to give their own message to the BCH community and whatever, story or point of view or encouragement or criticism or, advice or recommendation you think they need to hear. What does the BCH community need to hear?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I don't have anything like super specific. I say like, I mean, obviously this is gonna be just my perspective. You guys just definitely try out swaps with ThorChain. You can trade your stables in, you can trade your shit coins in, do whatever you want, or don't do it. Honestly, it really doesn't matter. But it's pretty cool being able to being able to trade without some kind of central entity that you need to make an account for, register. You just send coins in, send it out. Like just give it a shot. There's a bunch of good places to do that. Edge Wallet is a great one that I think a lot of users, a lot of Bitcoin Cash users use that wallet. And there's there's no shortage of ThorChain front end. There's a bunch of places where you can try it out. There's Shapeshift, who's kind of transitioned from that CDFI service to now just being like a DeFi wrapper. There's ThorSwap. There's so many different front ends. You can do it on Trust Wallet. There's many places you can try it. Just give it a shot. It's a pretty cool piece of tech. So being able to just stable up or buy more Bitcoin Cash on chain, you just on ramp your stables and then make your trades on chain with our liquidity. It's pretty damn cool. So give it a shot. And if people have suggestions of like where they want to see swaps, if you want to see it in your own wallet, obviously wallets can easily monetize ThorChain as well with affiliate fees, all built right into the protocol. So like it's a big revenue driver for a lot of wallets and things and protocols. So if you're a builder, you can make use of it to kind of tap into a native on-off ramp to your own app, or just to power affiliate fees and actually make a lot of money through whatever kind of volume you can do. So there's tons of different ways to build with it, and you can get access to more than just your own ecosystem, but you could still be building on top of Bitcoin Cash, which I think is a pretty powerful thing. So if you want to get in touch, you can always reach out to me on Twitter, on Telegram. I'm just at familiarcow, or the Nine Realms team, or in the dev Discord. There's lots of people building on this thing, and we definitely need more people building on top of Bitcoin Cash and ThorChain, because I don't think there's really anything that's like specific that's been built there by any of these teams. But there's so many cool ideas of products that you could build, I think. So we give a lot of support to all these integrators, whatever we can do to help. Definitely just let us know. We want to see apps gain adoption, and we want to see you guys do a bunch of volume. So yeah, just feel free to get in touch, and we'll help you out however we can.
Yeah, it sounded good. I mean, it's one of the things maybe on the 2024 for Selene. So you may or may not know, but I'm also one of the devs for Selene Wallet, which is one of the BCH, and it is BCH only, and that's our, we're a bit maximalist about that, but we're planning in 2024 to add in a bunch of, obviously new features and so forth. And I could see that maybe we would have in there one little section that you could do swaps in and out of other coins. Maybe you're onboarding your friend and he loves Ethereum or something, and you say, no, that's garbage. Look, here you go. Just send it in here. Boom, it's on BCH. Something like that.
Yeah, man. All you need is
really
some kind
cool.
of a little modal that's just like something. Hey, send your coins here, and all of a sudden you're onboarded into the wallet. I think that's a kind of powerful experience that not a lot of wallets have really tapped into yet. And something that we're trying to do on the integration side is like one of my main priorities and things that I'm trying to do is just like, yeah, so you have a Bitcoin Cash only wallet, but you need to onboard, like you want to onboard as many users as possible. So like getting people in from Ethereum, getting people in from Bitcoin, getting people in from Litecoin, or just whatever, is going to be a powerful tool to just get more users for your own wallet. And it also just fees that can actually like provide some substantial revenue towards your own development and things, and kind of make it self-sustaining. So like even if it's not in the wallet itself, just some kind of thing where you can just get in. It's a native on ramp is the way I think of it. It's so simple to just be able to be like, oh yeah, you're an Ethereum user, well now you're a Bitcoin Cash user, and now you're in the wallet and you can see how cool it is. So even if the wallet is only a single chain, you can still leverage the tech, and you could do savers too or something like that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different ways to make this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, it would be pretty cool if you had it and you had all your BCH in there. But then if you happen to, need to use Litecoin or something for like BitPay or something, or somebody was not supporting BCH, and you could just still scan and send off to any other chain with just a swap in the background. Yeah, that could be super cool. So anyway, we'll see about that. But yeah, that's definitely one possible thing on the roadmap. Right, supporter appreciation. Thank you to our donators, as usual. Thank you to our patrons, Ricky and HP. Thank you to our sponsor, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. And thank you to the Flipstarter contributors, Majamali, Marcelo, Molecular, Shadow of Harbinger, Tulrik, Emergent Reasons, Imaginary Username, Cheapy, Pat, Mini Satoshi, and Sandakisman, Marius. If you're new to the show and this is your first time watching, go and check out episode 85 to get the full backstory, essential guide to what is Bitcoin Cash, how did we get to it, what's going on with the podcast, what are we all doing here. That will explain a lot of things. Or you can check out bitcoincashpodcast.com, which has start guide, FAQ, links, and so on and so forth. Final shout outs, Familiar Cow. Is there anything else you want to give a shout out to? And where can people find you? I know you already mentioned like Twitter and Discord, but is there anything else you want to finally sign off with?
Twitter.com/familiarcow, and just follow ThorChain on there. I gotta hop and talk to a wallet right now who's gonna do an integration. So thank you so much for having me on, guys. You guys are awesome, and you guys are super responsive too. Highly recommend your guys' podcast to anybody, because
Cheers.
you guys just seem like you're really on top of it. So cheers, you guys. I can go though. So
Thanks.
peace. Thanks for having me on again, and thanks to the community for listening. Always appreciate it. So you can always catch me online. So I'll see you.
Love it. Ciao. All right. Catch you later. Jed,
Thanks.
do you have any shout outs?
Not this time, no. Our cameras are going to be screwed up, but.
And do I have any shout outs? I always think, like, during the week, I'm like, oh, we've got a podcast episode going. I should shout out this and this and this. And then we get live. I'm going to have to start putting them on the slides or something, because I always forget what I wanted to shout out. Well, I got to shout out BCH Guru, because I'm looking forward to their launch. That's going to be sick. I'm fired up for that. I want to shout out Joel Valenzuela as well for recommending ThorChain a bunch, because it does look like there's a lot of activity going on there, and we should be involved in that as much as possible. And let me think. I think that's pretty much it. And anti-shout out to Elizabeth Warren. Fuck you. That'll do it, everybody. Thank you for listening. Till next time.
All right.
So I started realizing that if you can just find strength just a little bit longer, you will have a crew of people following you along the way.
And that is another thing that no one can ever teach you. Because you're going to have to learn that on your own. You're going to have to figure out how to pull that energy out of your mind on your own. There's no book you can read that all of a sudden